This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Our stories are our identity. They're born from a never-ending cycle of repetitive thoughts that lead to deeply held beliefs, ingrained behaviors, and ultimately, who we believe ourselves to be. When we embody a fixed mindset, we view our qualities and abilities as unchangeable traits set in stone. Conversely, the growth mindset empowers us to believe that our qualities can evolve through dedication, effort, and continuous learning. It's not easy to change our story, but it is possible. Valeria interviews Deanna Moffitt. She is the author of The Rewrite: Change Your Life One Story at a Time. Deanna Moffitt is an accomplished speaker, coach, and author. The word people use most to describe her is energizing. With an eclectic background in project management, leadership development, qigong, improv comedy, and storytelling, Deanna isn't just a coach. She's a dynamic podcast guest you won't forget. Meet Deanna at deannamoffitt.com. Here's the interview with Deanna Moffitt.
In your own words, who is Deanna Moffitt?
You know, I used to give a lot of descriptors of I do this, this is my job, this is what I do. And I've really come to the realization that I am love. And I am light. And I am energy. And I reflect that back to people. And once I made that change of thinking about who am I, and trust me, that was deep conversation with my own coaches, it just allows me to walk on this earth slightly different when I know that that's who I am.
Wow, I love that answer. Love that answer. Wow, now I have way too many questions just from that answer alone. Wow, so love, what a beautiful concept. What is your understanding of love?
You know, for me, it is connection through the heart. It is a deep soul to soul seeing of another person and acceptance of them. And more, you know, I think the work came first through myself of being able to love and appreciate and understand. You know, I used to have a story that I was a burden on people. And now I can really truthfully claim I'm a blessing. Doesn't mean I always show up, you know, like perfectly or anything like that. But I think the way that I can show up for people and in the sense, reflecting back the amazingness that I see in them really is a blessing.
Yes, I read that in your bio. It's beautiful. Wow, that's wonderful. You know, I have to say, it sounds very spiritual to me. I have to ask you the question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And what is spirituality to you, Deanna? What is to be spiritual?
Yeah, for me, it is a deeper connection to the energy force. I just deeply believe that we are energy and we are connected to each other and to something higher than us. And I don't have a descriptor. Like I study qigong, which is a very, Taoist, and we're all in we are all connected. We're all energy. We're nature. And so I don't have what I would call a religious dogma or a belief around that. But I do believe that I am in connection and in connection with my spirit guides, with my, my loved ones on the other side. I believe that this energy that we have here on earth continues on once we pass. And I get to be in conversation, continued conversation in that state. Yeah, I just think that there's so much for us to experience here from a heart-centered place versus a head-centered place.
Wow, yes. A billion yeses to that. To the freedom of experiencing, to being open to what is a calling. Because, I hear a lot the idea of being aware, just becoming more aware of what's happening, how it's happening, the system, how it works, operates the body and the mind. No, it seems like it's too much to me. It becomes too brainy per se, analytical. I love the idea that we can become more intuitive and kind of flow with life as life. As you said, with Qigong, I'm familiar with the technique and the philosophy behind it, but not as deep as you are. But that really resonates with me, that I don't have a life, I am life. That really, really resonates. I heard that, I think, from a Qigong teacher that I interviewed recently.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there's something about that resonates with me. Talk to me how you came to do what you're doing today. What's the purpose behind your work?
Well, I'm a coach and I work in a lot of different arenas. I work with, clients, I work with executives, I work with businesses. And I love how you said, I think you're, Valeria, I think you're evolved. I think where we all talk about, awareness and it can feel kind of heady.
Yes.
I actually think that for most people, that's where they start. I don't shy away from that. I think we can definitely reach a point where I can't do any more head processing, right? I can't do any more top-down processing. I have to be in my body. But when we're starting on this, the spiritual journey or the self-development journey or any of that, I think often we start with our heads because it's the only thing we know. And so I work with clients, often helping them become aware of the stories that they're telling themselves, how they're, the problems aren't necessarily the problems that they're facing, but it's how they're perceiving the problems. That's the actual problem. I love how you said, problems are there sometimes as gifts for us to see ourselves. But boy, when that first comes to you, that message first comes to you, you're like, what? No, this is just an absolute problem.
Yes.
So I think I work with a lot of people who are beginning their journey of kind of self-development and becoming aware in all different aspects of their life and helping them become more attuned to, as you said, that intuition, that allowing, that flowing. I love that idea of just allowing things to happen as opposed to trying to always will and grit and drive things to happen, which some people can do really well. But I think there's a really fun co-creative process that we can have with the spirit that creates something that we never would have imagined.
Yes, right. I can say that from experience. The best things that happened to me, they are not planned. I was not planning any of it. So I never had thought about or imagined. So that tells me something. Not to say that planning is not necessary. I love imagining and curious.
Right?
I'm always
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's fun, isn't it? A lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. And I think that there's, things that I have wanted to create, but I didn't know how to do it. And so I just stayed in the place of this is what I want to create. I remember writing in my journal for probably 2 or 3 years. I want to go to Australia, but I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to have to pay for it. I want to just go to Australia. And I don't know why I wanted to do that. But after about 2 years, I do a lot of leadership facilitation and training. And I was doing it for a very well-known travel company. And I launched their leadership program here in the US. And after doing that, my contact came back to me and said, Deanna, they want to actually do this in Australia and they'd like you to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Not only did I not have to pay for it, but I got paid to do it, which was really wonderful.
Kind of being open. It's really, that's the calling for me. Let's say the insight is to be open. Kind of plan, dance with the possibilities, but don't hold down to anything too tightly to the point of suffering.
Not too tightly, right?
Yes, no.
Yes, yeah, because you don't let any magic in when you were holding so tightly.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Another open question for you before we talk about your book, The Rewrite, Change Your Life, One Story at a Time. I have another question for you. Yes, this one. What are some of the fundamental truths that you have uncovered about human beings as of today?
That's a good one. A fundamental truth. I think we're all afraid of not being loved. I think we're driven by stories of unworthiness. Those stories can drive us to great success. And that same story of unworthiness will not allow us to enjoy that success because we have to keep going. We have to keep going. I think we all deeply want connection. And more often than not, we don't always know how to do that. We think that we have to please others. And I had a coach say to me at one point, because I was a really good people pleaser for a good chunk of my life. And she said, Deanna, people pleasing is just an act of manipulation. And I was like, oof, that got me. And I was like, you're right. But, she went on to explain that when we don't show up fully as our authentic self, we're not given the opportunity for others to really know and love us as we truly are. We're trying to give them a version of ourselves that isn't our truth. And I was like, yeah. So I think those are a few fun. I love that deep question, Valeria.
Oh my God, I love you. I love your wisdom, your deep answers.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, so true. So it has been my case too, of course. For many years, I was traumatized as a child. I mean, we say trauma. It is a term that's used, but basically not feeling loved, not understanding or knowing even what love was by my parents. So there was a lot of disconnect from my own self. And yeah, that's what I did. Tried so hard to please others and to be whatever they wanted me to be. And then I lost myself in it. And that's interesting. One of the things that I have realized recently is that life is constantly looking for balance, for harmony. So whenever we are out of balance, like in my case, disconnected, there was this drive, there's something that was so powerful trying to go back to it. I didn't know what the destination was, the place was, what it felt like, beloved or joyful, whatever that was. I had no concepts for it, but it happened. That made me trust life in that sense of being life, because whatever is out of balance here, it will find its way because it's constantly doing that. So it's almost inevitable to come to this, let's say, expression of authenticity for all of us at some point. I know some people don't get to realize that or to live this way. And for that, I don't know, I do I have to believe that there is more to it. As you said, continuation, that life never ends and it keeps kind of cycling back. So we can realize that at some point. But this is a different conversation, I guess. But I love the authentic self topic. And you did mention that in your book under, let's see, the authentic self. Oh, yes. Your future stories, because you have in the book, you have 3 sections, right, Deanna?
You're right.
You have the past,
the present, and the future.
Right. So because we are already talking about the finding your authentic self or the authentic self idea, so let's dive into it a little bit more. How would you describe what that feels like? I know what it looks like. Some people, we have so many ideas, but what would that feel like for you? What is the embodiment of authenticity?
I think it is in true alignment with our head, our heart, and our body. This is a real qigong look at, they call it the three treasures, right? So our mind, our emotion, and our body, when there's real alignment with it, we're in the flow of life. And I often believe that our greatest suffering isn't necessarily what happened in our past, although that can be really painful, but it's often when we're out of alignment with who we want to be in our future. Like when we are not in alignment with our values, when we're acting out in ways that we know don't represent our highest selves, is when the shame comes in. And that's because we're not in alignment with our deepest soul desires. And I think for many people, they don't even take the time to figure out who it is they want to be on this earth. And I've just always felt our main purpose is to constantly evolve into the human we desire to be or we want to be. It doesn't mean the doing, right? But that means, who do I show up as this human? And imagine if we were all doing that with the goal of being the most loving and compassionate version of ourselves. Oof.
That would change everything. Yeah.
That would change everything, wouldn't it?
Would rewrite this reality, our
Yes.
shared reality. Completely. That'll be a
Yeah,
different reality.
but when we have a relationship with our future self, that means that in today, what I'm doing today is really serving that future self version, right? So Jerry Seinfeld has a great bit about, nighttime guy versus morning guy, right? And nighttime guy is out having a great time. And morning guy is like, what are you doing? And like, we just need to have a better relationship with ourselves in the future versus just ourselves satisfying these momentary moments. Because that future self can really pull us forward. This place, that's often this idea that our goals, our desires, our future isn't a place to get to, it's a place to come from. If I know who I want to be, well, what do I need to start doing today in order to be that?
Yeah, and that takes courage, doesn't it? A lot of courage. We cannot say that's easy, right, Deanna? It's not an easy commitment to make.
I wonder, though, I just want to invite a different thought of, I think when we have a vision for ourselves that is so strong and compelling, that it might even be easier than to be adrift without anything. I mean, it may sound more quote unquote comfortable to be adrift without a future desire or vision for ourselves, but it feels a little, I don't know, that feeling of being adrift. There's a little bit of, again, suffering in that I am out of alignment with it. And again, this doesn't mean I have to have these big lofty goals, but this desire, Robert Ellis calls it having a quest. And a quest doesn't have a known path, right? I don't like a known path, like a doctor. If I want to be a doctor, well, I know theoretically how to get there. I go to medical school, I go get an internship, I do all the hard things, and then I get to be a doctor. But some of us have this desire to create or do something, and there is no known path. We don't know how to do it. And that's the quest. And a quest has a much more circular path to get to it. And you may not ever end up where you thought you were going to go because you've been in the co-creative process, and you end up even more magical. You end up in somewhere that you couldn't have imagined before as you continue to evolve and unfold.
Yes. That really resonates true to me.
Yeah, share.
Because this idea of having, it's almost like being in touch already with that authentic self. So you already know what it feels like. Getting there, this placeless place, to me, it's already here. So I bring everything to the present, and that's where everything happens. The here now, which is not related to place or time. There's something about accepting what is. And I think you mentioned that too in your book, didn't you? I think you did mention that. So there's something magical about that. And I wonder, so the question, I guess, for you, Deanna, is how do we learn to balance this, being present to what is present, in acceptance of what is, in harmony, in a sense of a kind of flowing and letting, life just guide us. And the opposite, that not the opposite really, but let's say, how do we bring that together with this concept, the idea of planning, of striving, having this vision and, trying to get there. I'm trying to see that. Of course, I'm doing that all the time.
Right?
It feels different to me. Yeah, I'm sure I am.
Because I was like, right?
Yeah.
You had a vision to create a podcast, right?
Right.
You had a vision for creating this community and these conversations. You had to have something that you think, I want to create this. I want to do this. It may have evolved into something you wouldn't have imagined, right? And you're doing it. But of course you had, something you wanted to create or do.
It was not a plan. It just happened out of, let's say, it was already something that was here because it's something it's a fundamental truth to me to connect deeply with others. I couldn't really have small conversations. I can't to this day. So it was natural for life to kind of guide me in this direction. But it just happened in one moment. I remember was one day I talked to somebody on the phone and then she asked me the question. She was actually a psychotherapist, I believe. She was referred to me by somebody that I knew. And then she was becoming a healer. Yes, like a shamanic healer in Arizona. So she was kind of moving from being a clinical psychologist to a healer. And then she said to me, we were talking about trauma. And then I was expressing how I was traumatized and I was in this stuck place. I didn't know what to do. And then she said, you need to mother yourself. You need to reparent yourself. That's when the idea of the podcast came along, almost in the same day, maybe the second day. And then I put everything together in a matter of hours and everything was set up. Of course, the thought behind it and the ideas I had, they were different. I was trying to actually kind of escape what I was going through at that time. So it became something very different. It almost like circled back to the heart and went back to that truth that was always there. So I do trust that, Deanna. There's something about unique. It is unique and at the same time universal. Personal, universal. That's within all of us.
Yeah. And so what I heard you say in that is that you heard someone or it resonated with you that you needed to go back and reparent yourself. You needed to nurture yourself. And in that, there was an idea of having deep, meaningful conversations. And how can I create that? Right. So it just kept unfolding.
Right.
As every step you took. And I think that is that quest. And you may not even have a name for what it is, what the outcome is going to be. But you explained so brilliantly the idea of a quest, of continuing to say yes, with what comes in front of you, right? You're like, yes. And here you are.
Yes, that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
And as this continues, I'm sure there's other things that are coming your way that you continue to check in with yourself. Does this feel right? Does this not? If it does, yes. Well, yes, right? That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's it. But there's something about, you mentioned earlier about this striving always, I think in the very beginning of our conversation, almost by not accepting ourselves or loving ourselves. So we keep trying to find ways of kind of being validated by others in the external world, and this is something that I learned to distinguish. Now I know the difference. Okay, this is not about pleasing others. It's coming really from what is here. It's here now. I don't know. It's a placeless to me because sometimes we feel like it's in the body, but it's also outside of the body. It's everywhere. There's something that
Mm.
it connects the personal with the universal. And I really feel that it's this knowledge, this realization that everything has one essence, everything's interconnected. So there's something about that that resonates with the idea of the authentic self. I don't know if that resonates with you, but for me, it has been a wonderful guide, seeing
I love
everything
that.
as
Mm-hmm.
connected already. Let's see anything else. Gosh, now I'm completely all over the place here with your book and the ideas. Yes. So let's talk about the rewrite. That's the name
Yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
the title of your book. Change your life one story at a time. And I noticed that you have many stories there. So let me
Mm-hmm.
go back to the guided questions because that helps me too. You talk about three kinds of stories that we tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. I would love to hear that from you, Deanna.
So, as a coach and as a human, I started to really listen to people's stories. And at one point, when I was living in Chicago, and I taught storytelling for performance, and there was a real renaissance time period. Uh, Boy, that sounds crazy that it was just like 15 years ago, but there's lots of storytelling shows in Chicago that you can go to with everyday normal people getting up and just sharing aspects of their life. So I taught storytelling for a number of years, and I hosted a couple of storytelling shows. And what I realized even then, before I started coaching, is that people have a real way of telling their stories. And so as a coach, and I started working with people, I'd often hear them tell a story of what they can and cannot do, right? Oh, I couldn't possibly do that, or I'm too old for that, or I don't have enough experience for that, and blah, 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 blah. And I was always so curious about these stories that people are telling themselves that become their truth, right? Just because we are the stories that we tell ourselves and to other people. And so I got really fascinated with the continuation of the stories and who might you be or any of us be without those stories. And, and so the past stories are our oldest and most core wounded stories. These are the ones that often drive our behavior subconsciously, and we don't understand why we continually end up with the same person as a partner, or why we, you know, can't, keep friendships, or why we're in low end jobs. It's because these stories that are often so muted in our subconscious, we can't see them, but we can see the outcome of them and the results that we have in our life. And so that's those core stories. And those are stories that we either create for ourselves in survival mode, or that we create meaning about ourselves and the world around us to make sense at the time, right? These are I'm unworthy, or I'm unlovable, or I'm a burden. These are the stories that, if we were able to look at those experiences with the wisdom of our wise adult self, we would say, oh, that's BS. That's not really
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
We can't do that as a kid, right? And then the present stories are those that just get us emotionally hooked, right? So those are the stories I often talk about. When I moved from Portland, Oregon to Chicago, Portland, Oregon, no one honks their horn when they're driving. Everyone is so genteel behind the wheel. And I moved to Chicago, and all of a sudden I became a maniac behind the wheel, and
Yeah.
everyone's an idiot, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And we see this in examples of people who are getting angry and upset about situations and other people that they have absolutely no control of and no need to be butting into the people's lives. But we're getting emotionally hooked, and we can't see the fact that we're telling ourselves a story in this moment that isn't getting fact checked, but we're just reacting based on our emotions. And then our third stories are our future stories. And oftentimes people create really limiting stories about what is possible for their lives, or they don't create any story. And I do think that that story of the future is one that can compel us. that can move us, pull us forward from the heart of, I choose to live by my values. But first I have to know what those values are. And, I have to check with myself. Did I do that today? Well, I'm not sure if I really did, but how can I look at that? And I think sometimes we create stories of our future like, oh, I'll never be partnered, or I'll never have a loving relationship, or this world is a terrible mess. And you know this, that you are going to see whatever you look for. And so if we're telling ourselves that life is terrible, not to say that terrible things don't happen, they surely do. But if we're projecting that that's what our future is going to be, unfortunately, that's probably true.
It's true too. Yes. Wow. There's a lot of wisdom in what you're describing. It resonates, of course, within the human experience. Yes, it's very much a fact. There's something, you talk about the future self. That's an interesting concept for me. I never thought of it that way. So, because I guess with all the practices that I engage in, which they're mostly spiritual practices, I'm a student of the Advaita Vedanta, non-duality. So that kind of teaches us to kind of not have a story, basically not engage with anything that has to do with fixations or, let's say, obsessions, mental constructs. So it's easy for me to kind of engage with whatever it is and then just relax and forget in a way. Of course, not everything's forgotten. The brain is beautiful when it comes to that.
Right.
It keeps the body and the mind keeps scores, right? It stays here. But there's something about consciously when I'm engaging with other people or information, it's a moment thing. It's like a very present, it's here. And then there's something in me that let's go of all of that. So I wonder if it is actually possible to navigate this reality this way, Deanna. Kind of ending the storytelling and the belief systems. It's almost like being a child again, and just kind of seeing everything as something fresh. I love waking up like that. It's kind of strange, but I was like, oh, what is this? It seems like similar, but it's not. There's something here. I mean, that never changed, of course, something here that's eternal, but what is it? Sometimes I wake up like that, just asking, like they're wondering about everything, and it feels so different. So, but it doesn't last. So I guess I'm answering my own question, but I'd love to hear from you. How can we navigate this reality without a belief system, without stories?
I don't know. I think our minds are wired for story. We are constantly making meaning. Doesn't mean we can't let go of that, as you said, in moments and just pure presence. But I really don't know. And maybe it is an intense practice of, someone who that's really all they're doing and they're able to focus on that. Most of us, unfortunately, don't get to live in that kind of reality, or we think we don't, right? I don't even want to put that story on it. Right. So I'm really not sure. I love the idea of playful experimenting with the span of width we can go without a story that we're making in this, and just accepting that. But again, for most people, I think what I wanted to reach out with this book is probably, it's not a book for you, to be honest with you, Valeria, but it is a book for someone who is even new to the idea that they might be telling themselves a story, right? It's really for the person who is not necessarily experiencing the life that they want to be experiencing, and they don't know why. There's something that keeps catching them. And your inquiry is so beautiful And so, right, so evolved. It's so wonderful to be in that place. But I think for a lot of people, that question would be like, what are you talking about?
Yes. Yes, so true. It is
That I
true.
wanted to come back and reach those people,
Yes.
the initial curiosity around that. When I talk about the future self too, there's this work of going to meet your future self. And it's a little bit of, guided imagery, maybe even hypnosis, but the idea of your on some level, your future self is already living an amazing life, or this life that you think you want to live. Let's go meet them. Let's go have a conversation. How are they? What does that feel like in their body? And how can we merge that energy with your current existence, your current reality? If we were to believe in a multidimensionality of life, that all the possibilities are available to us, why don't we just go meet that future self that's already doing the thing you want to be doing or living the way you want to be living?
Right. Wow, that's a beautiful invitation, right? To think that way. And I really not just appreciate, but I love your openness to have this conversation with me, because I'm very kind of, there's something about being in the moment, but not just that. It's also, you probably heard this phrase before that says, you are what you're looking for. You're already what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my mantra that just perfumes these moments. It just
Mm-hmm.
feels so, yes, that's it. Although the mind is like, oh, let's do this, let's play some more, let's
Mm-hmm.
go
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, take the body somewhere, do this. Yes, great. But that joy, there's something about that tells me all the time, you're already what you're looking for. So there's no
I
really place
love
to
that.
go, where to do,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
to do even. So, and some people will take that as nihilism, just something, oh, so there's nothing else to do. I'm already everything. So that's it. So why might as well die? But there's something that comes alive that just, there's something else here that I truly believe it's everywhere within everyone. That's just, it's not that just beyond all this, that's material, that's experience. It's just, what holds everything, the experiences even. It holds this, what we call life, this reality, shared reality, actually the reality of the body mind. So that is something that informs me all the time, without going into the time idea, constructed idea. But I really appreciate you being open to this,
Oh my
input, to
gosh.
this perspective. So thank you. It's really
Yes,
beautiful.
of course, of course. Yeah, I just appreciate who and where you are in your experience. You're opening up the possibilities for people to again, I know it's not about thinking, but for a lot of people that's the first level of recognition and awareness. Oh, it doesn't have to be this way. These rules, this understanding of the world has been placed on my shoulders. You show up in a way that says, there's another way. There's another experience to be had if you're open to see it and feel it.
Yes, yeah, and I don't even know if it is I mean, it has to be. It is expressed within the body mind, of course, because there's something here that just it speaks these words. It's almost like being aware of the space which holds the experience. So it's not going beyond experience, but it's almost like merging so tightly with it that it's almost like you don't. What is experience then?
Right.
There's no need for this constant search for something else. Something's missing. That just everything, it dissolves. It keeps dissolving, and it happens. I mean, for me, it's been happening just naturally. The more I engage with the practice of Vedanta, which it is a philosophical practice, spiritual philosophy, Hindu, it's engaging with that. I guess at some point, it starts to become what you are, not even who you are. So yeah, that's a different conversation, right? And I really appreciate you being open to it. I mean, I just find it
it's
to be
great.
beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah,
Yes.
me too.
Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you, Deanna. So we are almost at the end. Let's see. I do have the ending questions I want to mention. So your book, I love the way it is structured because you have those three. There's something about the number 3 too that keeps calling my attention.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, you have the past stories, and then you have present stories, and then you have the future stories. I just have them in front of me. And what caught my attention is here. There's something that it was said, the power of the word yet. That caught my attention too, because that's opening to the possibilities, right, Deanna, of what could be.
Right. Yes.
And then you talk about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. I don't know if we have time, but we might have time for this if you don't mind. Would you like to add or disclose some information, share some information about those two ideas, concepts again, the fixed and the growth mindset?
Well, the fixed mindset is the researchers from Carol Dweck, her book, The Mindset, is really about how some of us can perceive the world as fixed, and that if I have a fixed mindset, this is just who I am. I can't really grow. It's who I am. And my dad, God love him, that was his mindset in a lot of different areas of our life. And we're not binary. We're not either fixed or open. And open is really just the idea that we have the potential to grow. We can learn. We can expand ourselves. And some of us, I used to, or I do a lot of coaching, and I'd facilitate work that other people had designed and delivered. So I would often quote Carol Dweck in her research. And then I decided to read her book, and I was like, oh, oh my gosh, I have such a fixed mindset in some areas of my life. And I was like, oh, it's not a binary on or off. It's those areas in our life that when we say, oh, I can't do that, or that's not for me, or I'll never be able to figure that out, or blah, those are just areas in our life that we've decided we're more fixed in than we may actually be. And I grew up, I was pretty smart and intelligent as a young kid, and so I was always told I was super smart. You're so smart. They wanted to up me in a grade and all that. And I was smart until I wasn't. And then I realized later in life, I just never learned how to learn because I just thought everything was supposed to come easy to me. And boy, when it didn't come easy, all of a sudden it actually was a hit to what I perceived my identity to be. Because I was supposed to be smart, and now there's other people around me who could figure something else out, and I couldn't. And what does that make me? At the time, I couldn't see that it just made me human, and I was learning something. It was just more of a hit to my identity. So that's just the idea of, where are we in where in our life are we more fixed, and where are we more able to grow and expand?
I love how open you are. I mean, I keep saying that, I guess, because it's just so beautiful. You're so open to your own uncoverings, right? And then helping others to do the same. What a beautiful work. It's spiritual, it's healing to me. And as you said, everyone is at a different stage, different place in life. And yes, we all need that. It's the guidance to one step at a time, as you say, one story at a time, but one step at a time, just getting closer to that. To me, would be the realization that we are already complete and whole. So we almost at the ending now. I kept saying it twice already. So before we say goodbye for today, Deanna, I have this just one technical question, and then this question about freedom. I have to ask you this question. What is your idea of freedom? What is freedom to you?
I think freedom is moving beyond moving beyond the disappointments. Oh, gosh, that's not the right way to do it. Freedom is allowing yourself to fail wildly, to not worry about disappointing others. It is the act of, as you said, being so present to what is right here in front of me that I don't have to worry about the past or the future, that I can just be right here and be present. Isn't that just an amazing feeling?
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. Amazing. It is. That's it.
Yes.
I love your laughter. I have to say that to you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. There's freedom in that laughter.
Yes, for sure.
Wow. How beautiful. Yes, Deanna. That's a beautiful vision. Before we say goodbye, where is the best place to find more information about you? I'll have the link, the Amazon link for your book, but there's any other place that we can find?
You can come to my website at deannamoffitt.com. There's a lot of double letters in that, but I know you'll post that. I'm also on Instagram at Deanna Moffitt. You can go there. You can also just feel my energy out in the wind.
Yes. What's not to love about that?
Yeah, right?
That part of it. Yes. How beautiful. Thank you so much again for your presence in our reality and for everything that, for being you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was a true joy.
Yeah, feel the same. Bye for now, dear.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Deanna Moffitt and her work, please visit deannamoffitt.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.